7 o'clock on Monday morning in Richmond greets the city with the familiar hum of factory horns and the noise of streets waking up. Ethan Cross stands under the hood of an old Chevrolet, his hands elbow-deep in motor oil, but with a smile on his face that hasn't left for a week. In 6 days, he will marry Chloe Miller, the girl he has dreamed of since he first saw her in a hospital uniform 3 years ago. "Hey, groom!" Mike Thompson, his colleague and best friend, shouts across the auto repair shop. "Your fiancée called. She said not to forget your tux fitting at 4. Ethan straightens up, wiping his hands on his overalls. At 29, he still looks like the shy guy who was afraid to talk to girls in school, but working as a mechanic has made him stronger and more confident. Chloe changed his life, gave him a purpose he never could have dreamed of before. "Damn, I completely forgot," Ethan admits, looking at the oil stains on his hands. "She warned me 10 times. "Lovers," Mike laughs, shaking his head. "At least you didn't forget your head at home." Johnson's Auto Service, where Ethan has worked for the past 8 years, is located on Chester Avenue in a working-class neighborhood. Everyone knows everyone here, and the news of Ethan's upcoming wedding spread throughout the neighborhood a month ago. The locals are used to seeing him at work, a reliable, honest guy who never overcharges and always finds a way to fix even the most hopeless car. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Ethan was washing his hands with industrial soap, trying to get rid of the oil that had soaked into his skin. He needed to stop by the hospital to see Chloe. She was on her lunch break, and they had agreed to have lunch together at a small cafe near the medical center. Richmond Medical Center is one of the largest medical facilities in eastern Indiana. Chloe has been working here as a nurse in the emergency room for 4 years. Her colleagues respect her for her professionalism and kindness, and patients remember her smile even in the most difficult moments. "Hi, beautiful." Ethan hugs Chloe around the waist as she leaves the hospital building. Even in her simple medical uniform, she looks gorgeous. Her blonde hair is pulled back in a ponytail. Her face shows slight fatigue from the morning shift, but her eyes shine with happiness at the sight of her fiancé. "Hi, future husband," she replies, standing on tiptoe for a kiss. "How's it going at the garage? You haven't changed your mind about marrying a girl who makes more money than you, have you?" "No way," Ethan laughs. "Someone's got to support me in my old age." They head to Martha's Diner, a small family-owned cafe on National Road that serves the best burgers in town, and where they had their first date. Martha, the elderly owner, greets them like family. "So, lovebirds, are you ready for the big day?" she asks, pouring coffee without waiting for an order. She remembers how each of them likes their drink. "Almost," Chloe replies, taking a notebook with lists out of her purse. "Just need to pick up the flowers, check the last details with the restaurant, and pick up the dress from the dry cleaners." Ethan covers her hand with his. "Chloe, relax. Everything will be fine. The main thing is that we'll be together." "You're right," she smiles, but Ethan notices a slight tension in her voice. "I just want everything to be perfect. You know, my mom still can't believe I'm getting married. She says 26 is too young." "What does your dad say?" "Dad is silent, as usual. But yesterday he asked if we'd have enough money to get started. He offered to help with the down payment on a house." Ethan frowned. Housing was their biggest headache. They were currently renting a small apartment on South Park Drive, but wanted to buy their own house. It wasn't easy on a mechanic's and nurse's salary, especially in Richmond, where real estate prices had risen in recent years. "We'll manage on our own," he says with conviction. "I talked to Johnson about a raise. He promised to think about it after the wedding." "What if your brother helps? Alvin makes good money at the factory." At the mention of his older brother, Ethan's face darkens. Alvin is a sore subject in the Cross family. 3 years older, he was always his father's favorite, got the best grades in school, and was captain of the football team. After school, he got a job at a large steel mill, Herdman Steel, and quickly rose to foreman. But success did not make him a better person. Alvin became arrogant, selfish, and accustomed to thinking that the world revolved around him. "Alvin only thinks about himself," Ethan replies, trying not to show his irritation. "He didn't even call Mom for 3 months. He only showed up when he found out about the wedding." "But he's coming, right? He's your best man. He promised," although he'll probably forget or change his mind at the last minute. Chloe squeezes his hand. Everything will be fine. It's our day and nothing will ruin it. After lunch, they drive to the wedding salon on Chestnut Street for the final fitting. Ethan feels awkward in his tuxedo. He's used to his work clothes, and the elegant suit feels foreign. But when he sees himself in the mirror next to Chloe in her wedding dress, his heart skips a beat. "My God," he whispers. "You're beautiful." Chloe blushes as she looks at herself in the mirror. The dress fits perfectly, simple, elegant, without unnecessary embellishments. It's exactly what she's dreamed of since childhood. "And you look like a real gentleman," she laughs. "I wish your mom could see us right now." Rita Cross, Ethan and Alvin's mother, works the night shift at a textile factory. After her husband died 5 years ago, she has been raising her family alone, even though her sons are already grown. Ethan tries to help her when he can, but he knows that his mother has a hard time. In the evening, Ethan arrives at his mother's house on Fort Wayne Avenue, a modest 2-story house his father bought in the 1980s. Rita is cooking dinner, and old country songs are playing on the radio. The house smells of fried chicken and homemade cookies, the smells of Ethan's childhood. "How are you, son?" Rita asks, hugging her son. At 58, she is still a beautiful woman, but work and the loss of her husband have left their mark. Her hair is graying, and her eyes sometimes flash with fatigue. "Everything's great, Mom. We're picking up the rings tomorrow, and rehearsal is the day after tomorrow." "Did Alvin call?" Ethan sighs. "Number, but he promised he'd come on Thursday." "You know he's not as bad as you think," Rita says, placing a plate in front of her son. "He's just different. He had a hard time after your father died too." "I had a hard time too, but I didn't disappear from your life." "Everyone deals with grief in their own way, Ethan. Alvin has always been more reserved. Remember how he used to sit alone for hours in your father's garage, working on something?" Ethan remembers. He also remembers how Alvin always got more attention, how his father was proud of his achievements at school, how everyone predicted a bright future for him. Ethan was always quiet, calm, the one who didn't cause any trouble but didn't attract much attention either. "Chloe is a good girl," Rita continues. "She makes you happy. That's what matters." "Yes, Mom. She's the best thing that ever happened to me." "Then don't let anything ruin your wedding. Not old grudges, not stupid pride. Life is too short for feuds, especially between brothers." Late in the evening, Ethan returns to his apartment, where Chloe is waiting for him. She is lying on the sofa with a bridal magazine, and invitation samples and guest lists are spread out on the coffee table. The scene is so homey and cozy that Ethan's heart fills with warmth. "How was your evening with Mom?" she asks, without looking up from the magazine. "Fine. She's worried about Alvin." "And you?" Ethan sits down next to her and hugs his fiancée. "I don't know. On the one hand, I want him to be at the wedding. He is my brother after all. On the other hand, I'm afraid he'll do something stupid." "What could he do? It's your wedding. You don't know Alvin. He knows how to be the center of attention wherever he goes. He knows how to charm people, especially women, and he thinks the world revolves around him." Chloe puts down the magazine and turns to her fiancé. "Ethan, listen to me. In 6 days, we're getting married. This is our day, our happiness, and no one, not even your brother, can change that. I love you. I want to be your wife, and that's all that matters." He kisses her, feeling the tension leave his body. Chloe is right. No matter what happens, the important thing is that they love each other. But somewhere deep down, there remains a vague anxiety, a premonition that their perfect life is too fragile, too vulnerable to outside forces. On Wednesday morning, the phone at Rita Cross's house rang at 6:30. She woke up immediately. After 20 years of working night shifts, her sleep had become light, ready to be interrupted by any sound. "Mom, it's me." Alvin's voice sounded tired, but there was his usual confidence in it. "I'm on my way. I'll be there in 3 hours." "Alvin?" Rita sat up in bed, fully awake. "But you said you were coming on Thursday." "My plans changed. I took an extra day off. I thought I'd better get there early to help with the preparations." Rita smiled despite the early hour. That's wonderful, son. Ethan will be delighted. We'll see, Alvin said, a strange note in his voice. Listen, Mom, is this girl Chloe really nice? Of course she is. Why do you ask? Just curious. Ethan's never had good taste in women. Rita frowned. Alvin, don't start. This is an important day for your brother. Okay. See you in 3 hours. After breakfast, Rita called Ethan at work. Alvin is coming today, she said, earlier than planned. Ethan froze, holding a wrench over the engine of his old Ford. Today? Why so early? He says he wants to help with the preparations. Alvin, help! Ethan couldn't hide the skepticism in his voice. Mom, you know he never does anything without getting something out of it. Ethan, please, maybe he really has changed. Give him a chance. After talking to his mother, Ethan couldn't concentrate on his work. His thoughts returned to his childhood, to the days when Alvin was his hero. His older brother had always seemed unattainable to him. Handsome, smart, successful at everything he set his mind to. Their father, Robert Cross, worked as a foreman at the same factory where Alvin now worked. He was a stern, taciturn man who believed in discipline and hard work. Alvin easily won his approval with good grades, athletic achievements, and plans to go to college. Ethan, on the other hand, always remained in his older brother's shadow, a quiet boy who preferred to fix broken toys rather than play football. Robert died 5 years ago of a heart attack at work. He was 58, the same age Rita is now. Alvin was hardly ever home at the time, saying he was working, leaving Ethan to deal with the funeral, paperwork, and supporting their mother. Since then, the brothers had only seen each other on family holidays, and even then, not always. At 10 in the morning, a black Dodge Charger, the latest model, pulled up to the car service. Ethan recognized the car immediately. Alvin always liked to show off his success. A tall man in an expensive leather jacket and dark jeans got out of the car. At 32, Alvin looked like he had just stepped off the cover of a magazine. Fit, confident, with that easy smile that always drew people to him. Hey, little brother. Alvin hugged Ethan, and he smelled the familiar scent of expensive cologne. How's it going in the dirt and grease? Fine, Ethan replied curtly. Didn't expect you so soon. Decided not to put off family business. Besides, I'm curious to see the girl who managed to get you to walk down the aisle. Mike Thompson approached the brothers, wiping his hands on his overalls. You must be Alvin. I've heard a lot about you. Hopefully good things. Alvin shook his hand with a charming smile. And you must be Ethan's partner in misfortune? Something like that. Trying to teach him how to hold a wrench. Ethan watched the exchange of pleasantries with growing irritation. Alvin always knew how to charm people from the moment he met them, while it took Ethan years to build relationships with his colleagues. Listen, Ethan, Alvin said. Would you introduce me to your fiancée? I'd like to meet her before the wedding. Chloe's at work, maybe tonight. What's stopping you from stopping by the hospital? I'm going to be her brother-in-law. Ethan wanted to refuse, but he knew it would look strange. Okay, but she's having a busy day. At 1 o'clock, the brothers arrived at the medical center. Chloe was just finishing her morning shift and changing in the staff locker room. When she came out into the lobby and saw a man she didn't recognize standing next to Ethan, a look of mild surprise flashed across her face. Chloe, meet my brother Alvin, Ethan said. Alvin stepped forward with a broad smile. Finally, I get to meet my brother's famous fiancée. Ethan wasn't exaggerating. You really are beautiful. Chloe blushed slightly. Nice to meet you, Alvin. Ethan has told me a lot about you. I hope it wasn't all bad, Alvin laughed, and Chloe couldn't help but smile back. There was something magnetic about the way he spoke, the way he looked into the eyes of the person he was talking to, making them feel like the center of the universe. How about lunch, the three of us? Alvin suggested. I'd like to get to know the girl who makes my brother so happy. At Martha's diner, Alvin immediately charmed the elderly owner. My goodness, what a handsome man, Martha exclaimed. Now I see where Ethan gets it from. Actually, I take after my younger brother, Alvin replied with a smile. He's always been smarter than me. Ethan felt his stomach tighten with irritation. Alvin always knew how to say the right thing while remaining the center of attention. Over lunch, Alvin asked Chloe about her job, her family, and her plans for the future. He listened attentively, asked intelligent questions, and laughed at her jokes. Ethan saw his fiancée gradually relax, her initial wariness disappearing. "Do you work at the same factory as your father?" Chloe asked. Alvin's face darkened for a moment. "Yes. I started as a simple worker. Now I'm a shift supervisor. My father always said that you have to work with your hands to understand life." "He would be proud of you," Chloe said quietly. "I don't know. Dad was a complicated man. It wasn't easy for him to express his feelings." Ethan remembered his father. Robert Cross was not a man of many words. But Ethan remembered how his father beamed with pride when Alvin received awards at school, how he told the neighbors about his older son's athletic achievements. He spoke less about his younger son, though he never showed any dissatisfaction. "But he left behind 2 wonderful sons," said Chloe, taking Ethan's hand. "He must have been a good father." "He tried," replied Alvin, and there was an unexpected sadness in his voice. Everyone has their own way of showing love. After lunch, Alvin suggested they take a drive around town. "I want to see how Richmond has changed. Plus, I need to buy a wedding gift." They drove to Richmond Square Mall on the outskirts of town. While Chloe picked out the last few things for the wedding, the brothers stayed at a jewelry store. "What do you think of this sapphire ring?" Alvin asked, looking at the display case. "Or these classic diamond earrings?" "Why such expensive gifts?" Ethan asked in surprise. "We agreed on a modest wedding. This is my little brother's only wedding. I want it to be memorable." Ethan looked at his brother suspiciously. "Since when did you become so generous?" Alvin turned to him, and the smile disappeared from his face. "Listen, Ethan. I know we haven't always gotten along. I know I haven't been the best brother since Dad died. But you're still my brother. My only brother. And if you're happy with this girl, then I want to support you." "Really? Really? Chloe is nice. I can tell she loves you. And you look happy, more confident than before." Ethan felt the tension ease a little. Maybe his mother was right. Maybe Alvin really had changed. That evening, the whole family gathered at Rita's house for dinner. Rita had prepared her son's favorite meal, fried chicken with mashed potatoes and green beans. The atmosphere at the table was almost festive. "Remember, Alvin, how you and Ethan used to fight over chicken legs when you were kids?" Rita laughed. "Of course I remember. Ethan was always faster, even though he was younger. But you were stronger," Ethan replied. "And Dad always gave you a bigger portion." "I don't remember that." "I do." Chloe noticed the tension between the brothers. "Tell me about your first jobs." She quickly changed the subject. "Ethan said you both started early." "Ethan got a job at a car repair shop when he was still in high school," Rita said. "Johnson saw his talent right away, and Alvin had a summer job at a factory when he was 16. My father got me the job," Alvin explained. "He wanted me to understand what a real job was like. The first day, I thought I wouldn't last an hour. The heat, the noise, the heavy work. But then I got used to it. I even grew to love it." "What about your college plans?" Chloe asked. Alvin's face darkened. "I had plans. I even got a sports scholarship. But my father got sick during my senior year. I had to stay and help my family." Ethan looked at his brother in surprise. "I didn't know about the scholarship." "There's a lot you didn't know. Dad asked me not to tell you. He didn't want you and Mom to feel guilty. But he got better, didn't he?" "Yes, but it was too late. They gave the scholarship to someone else, and I was already caught up in factory life." Rita quietly wiped her eyes with a napkin. "I never knew, Alvin. Why didn't you tell me?" "Why? Nothing could have been changed anyway. Besides, the factory turned out to be a good place. Good money, stability, prospects for advancement." After dinner, while Chloe helped Rita clear the table, the brothers went out to the backyard to smoke. Alvin took out a pack of expensive cigarettes and offered one to Ethan. "I haven't smoked in 2 years," Ethan said. "Chloe doesn't like it." "You're right. It's a bad habit." Alvin lit a cigarette and looked up at the stars. "Listen, are you happy?" "What? Are you happy? With your life, your job, this girl?" Ethan thought about it. "Yes, I guess so. Why do you ask?" "Just curious. Sometimes it seems like we're stuck in this town. We do the same thing every day, see the same people, live the same dreams. You can leave if you want. I could have. I used to. Now it's too late. Too many ties, too many commitments. Alvin took a deep drag. Have you never dreamed of a different life? Of traveling, new places, other people? I have. But then I met Chloe, and I realized that the place isn't as important as the person you share it with. That sounds very romantic. There was a strange note in Alvin's voice that Ethan couldn't quite place. Mockery, envy, or something else? You'll meet someone, Ethan said. You're not a bad guy when you want to be. Alvin laughed. I meet people all the time, but it's never right. Either they're too simple or too complicated. Either they just want money or they want to change me completely. What do you want? Alvin was silent for a long time, staring at the tip of his cigarette. You know, Ethan, sometimes I think I want what I can't have. And what I can have, I'm not interested in. That sounds like a problem. Yeah, I guess that's my main problem. When they returned to the house, Chloe was already getting ready to leave. I have to get up early tomorrow, she explained. I need to pick up the flowers and check on the restaurant. Can I help? Alvin offered. I have the day off. That's very kind, but you don't have to. I insist. I want to be useful. Ethan felt a slight uneasiness, but couldn't explain why. Alvin was behaving perfectly, polite, caring, with just the right amount of family warmth. As he walked Chloe to her car, Ethan asked, "What do you think of my brother?" He's very charming and interesting. You can tell he's been through a lot. Yes, Alvin has a complicated history. He loves you, you know. It's obvious even when you argue. Maybe. Chloe kissed her fiancé goodbye. Stop worrying. Everything will be fine. In 3 days, we'll be husband and wife, and nothing can change that. But when Ethan returned to the house and saw Alvin looking at the wedding photos on the mantelpiece, his strange uneasiness only grew. Thursday began with rain. Chloe woke up at 6:30 to the sound of raindrops on her apartment window, and her first thought was, "Not Saturday, please." The wedding was to be held in the garden of the Glen Miller Park restaurant, and rain could ruin all the plans. By 9 o'clock, when she arrived at the flower shop on North 10th Street, the rain had stopped, but the sky was still gray. Alvin was already waiting for her at Blooms and Petals, looking at the arrangements in the window. "Good morning," he said, turning to her with a smile. "Ethan said you don't like to be late." "A nurse's habit," Chloe replied, taking a list out of her purse. "When you work in a hospital, every minute counts." The shop owner, an elderly woman with gray hair, showed them the finished arrangements. White roses, baby's breath, a little greenery. Everything was exactly as Chloe had requested. "Excellent choice," Alvin approved. "Classics never go out of style." "Do you know anything about flowers?" Chloe asked, surprised. "Not particularly, but I understand beauty." He looked at her in a way that made her feel slightly embarrassed. While the owner prepared the bridal bouquet for transport, Alvin and Chloe sat in the small waiting area of the shop, sipping coffee. "Tell me about your job," Alvin asked. "Ethan says you work in intensive care?" "In the emergency room. There's always something going on, from simple cuts to serious injuries. You never know what the next hour will bring." "Isn't it scary, seeing pain and suffering?" Chloe thought for a moment. "It was hard at first, especially when you lose a patient, but then you realize that your job is to help people in the most difficult moments of their lives. It gives meaning to your life. What are your plans for the future? Children, family?" "Of course. Ethan wants 2 children, a boy and a girl. I don't mind." She smiled. "What about you? Don't you think about starting a family?" Alvin was silent for a long time, twirling his coffee cup in his hands. "I do, but I can't find the right woman. Either I'm bored with her, or I'm not right for her." "What's your ideal woman like?" "Smart, kind, strong but gentle at the same time. Someone who sees me as more than just a paycheck or status." He looked up at Chloe. "Probably someone like you." Chloe felt herself blush. "Alvin, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. It's just that Ethan is a lucky guy." At that moment, the shop owner announced that the bouquet was ready, and the awkward moment passed. Their next stop was the Glen Miller Park restaurant. The establishment was located in a historic early 20th century building surrounded by a large garden. The manager, a young woman named Carol, greeted them in the lobby. "Miss Miller, I'm so glad you're here. I wanted to discuss some details." They went into the banquet hall, where tables were already being set up. Alvin stayed aside while Chloe discussed the details of the catering, music, and seating arrangements. He watched her, noticing how she tried to control every little thing, how important it was to her that everything be perfect. "What about the garden?" Chloe asked. "What if it rains tomorrow?" "We have a tent," Carol reassured her. "We'll set it up an hour before the ceremony if the weather doesn't improve." When they finished at the restaurant, it was already 2 o'clock in the afternoon. "How about lunch?" Alvin suggested. "I know a great place." He took her to a small Italian restaurant on the outskirts of town called Mama Rosa's. The place was simple and family-run, with checkered tablecloths and the smell of garlic and basil. "How did you find this place?" Chloe asked, looking at the menu. "I used to bring girls here a lot," Alvin replied honestly. "But don't worry, we're like family here now." Over lunch, the conversation flowed easily and naturally. Alvin talked about his work at the factory, plans for expanding production, and his colleagues. Chloe shared stories from the hospital, funny incidents with patients, and the difficulties of the medical profession. "Have you ever thought about becoming a doctor?" Alvin asked. "I did. I even started preparing for medical school, but my family couldn't afford it. Nursing school was much cheaper." "Do you regret it?" "Sometimes. But I love what I do, and I plan to advance. I want to get certified as a surgical nurse." "Does Ethan support you?" Chloe hesitated for a moment. "Of course, although he sometimes says that after we get married, I can work less if I want to." "Do you want to?" "I don't know. On the one hand, it's tempting to have more time for my family. On the other hand, my job gives me independence and self-respect." Alvin nodded. "I understand. Sometimes it seems like men don't always understand how important a career is to a woman." After lunch, they drove to Rita's house to pick up gifts from relatives who couldn't make it to the wedding. While Chloe talked to her future mother-in-law, Alvin went out into the garden. Half an hour later, Chloe found him sitting on an old swing that their father had built many years ago. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, sitting down next to him. "About my childhood. Ethan and I spent all our summers here. He was always a serious kid even then. And me?" Alvin smiled. "I was a troubled teenager." "In what way?" "I got into fights at school, skipped classes, hung out with the wrong girls. My parents didn't know what to do with me." "What changed you?" "My father's death, I guess. I realized it was time to grow up. But sometimes I feel like I missed out on something important in my youth. Like I didn't live my own life." Chloe looked at him sympathetically. "It's never too late to start over." "At 32? In a small town where everyone knows your history? Why not move away? You're educated, experienced. You could find a job in any city." Alvin turned to her. "Could you do it? Leave everything behind and start over in a new place?" Chloe thought about it. "I used to dream about it. I wanted to live in a big city, work in a big hospital. But now," she pointed to the house, to the garden. "Now my life is here. Ethan, my family, my plans for the future." "What if you met someone who offered you a different life, full of adventure and new opportunities?" "Is that a hypothetical question?" Alvin looked at her for a long time, and Chloe felt a strange tension in the air. "I guess so," he finally said. That evening, the family gathered at Rita's house for a rehearsal dinner. Chloe's parents, David and Linda Miller, arrived. They were quiet, middle-aged people who seemed a little awkward among their new relatives. David was an accountant at a small firm, and Linda was a retired elementary school teacher. "You have a beautiful home," Linda said, looking at the family photos on the mantelpiece. "Robert did a lot of the work himself," Rita replied. "He was a very handy man." The atmosphere at dinner was friendly. David Miller turned out to be an unexpectedly interesting conversationalist, telling stories about his clients. Linda shared memories of her teaching career. Alvin charmed everyone with his wit and attentiveness. "Tell me about your son's childhood," Linda asked. Rita smiled. They were very different. Alvin was active, outgoing, always the center of attention. Ethan was quiet, thoughtful, loved to build things with his hands. But Ethan never caused any trouble, Alvin added. Unlike me. What kind of trouble? Chloe asked. Just the usual teenage nonsense, Alvin dismissed. Nothing serious. After dinner, the guests left. But Alvin stayed to help his mother clear the table. Ethan and Chloe went out onto the porch to get some fresh air. This time tomorrow we'll be husband and wife, Ethan said, hugging his bride. Are you scared? Chloe asked. A little. Are you? Me too, but it's a good kind of scared. The anticipation of something important. Chloe, are you happy, really? She turned to him in surprise. Of course I'm happy. Why do you ask? Sometimes it seems like you're dreaming of something more, of a different life. Ethan, where did that come from? I don't know. Maybe it's because of my conversation with Alvin. Did he say anything today? Chloe hesitated for a second. We were just talking about life, plans, nothing special. Ethan sensed that she was hiding something, but decided not to press her. At 10:30 in the evening, Chloe got ready to go home. Alvin offered to walk her home. No, it's okay, Ethan said. I'll give her a ride. You have a big day tomorrow, Alvin objected. You need to get some sleep. I don't have anything to do. Chloe looked at Ethan. He's right. You need to be fresh tomorrow. Reluctantly, Ethan agreed. Quiet music played in Alvin's car as the familiar streets of Richmond rolled by. Chloe sat silently, thinking about tomorrow. What are you thinking about? Alvin asked. The wedding. Everything that's going to change tomorrow. What will change? You already live together. Formally, yes. But psychologically, everything will be different. I'll be a wife, part of the Cross family. It's a big responsibility. Alvin stopped the car at Chloe's driveway, but didn't turn off the engine. Chloe, can I ask you a personal question? Yes. Do you really love my brother? The question caught her off guard. Of course I do. How can you ask that? I'm sorry. It just seems like you're getting married not so much out of love as because it's the right thing to do. You met a nice guy. You're the right age. That's not true, Chloe said, but her voice sounded uncertain. Alvin turned to her. What if you had met me before you met Ethan? Alvin, what are you talking about? About how sometimes we make choices without thinking about other possibilities. That life can offer us something unexpected, even at the most inopportune moment. Chloe felt her heart begin to beat faster. I don't understand. You do. I've seen the way you look at me, and I feel the same way. Alvin, stop. I'm marrying your brother tomorrow. What if it wasn't tomorrow? What if we had met somewhere else at a different time? Chloe opened the car door. I have to go. But Alvin grabbed her hand. Chloe, wait! Let go of me. I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since the moment we met. And I know you feel the same way. You're wrong. Then look me in the eyes and tell me you don't feel anything. Chloe turned to him, about to say just that, but the words stuck in her throat. Alvin slowly leaned toward her and she didn't pull away. The kiss lasted only a few seconds, but it felt like an eternity. When they pulled apart, Chloe stared at him with wide eyes. This is a mistake, she whispered. Maybe, but it's true. Chloe jumped out of the car and almost ran to the front door. Alvin watched her disappear through the doorway, then slammed his fist against the steering wheel. In her apartment, Chloe stood at the window for a long time, looking at the city lights. Her heart was still pounding. Her lips still remembered the kiss of a stranger. Tomorrow, she would be the wife of Ethan, a kind, loving man who had offered her a stable, predictable life. But tonight, something had changed, and she didn't know what to do about it. At 1 o'clock in the morning, the phone rang. The display read, Ethan. Hi, she said, trying to sound normal. Hi, are you awake? I can't sleep. I'm nervous. Me too. Listen, did Alvin get you home okay? The pause lasted too long. Yes, everything's fine. Why? Nothing. He just seemed kind of strange today. Thoughtful. He's probably worried too. Probably. Okay, try to get some sleep. Tomorrow's a big day. Ethan? Yes? I love you. The words sounded almost like an apology. I love you too. Goodbye, my future wife. After the conversation, Chloe lay in the dark for a long time, trying to understand what had happened that evening and what it meant for her future. Friday, wedding day, 6:30 in the morning. Ethan woke up to the sound of his phone and immediately knew something was wrong. His mother's name was flashing on the display, and Rita never called that early unless something serious had happened. "Mom, what's wrong?" "Ethan, come quickly." Rita's voice was trembling. "Alvin isn't answering his phone, and his door is locked. I heard some noises during the night, but I thought he just couldn't sleep." Ethan got dressed in 2 minutes and rushed to his mother's house. On the way, he tried to call his brother, but Alvin's phone was turned off. The strange feeling that had been haunting him for the last few days had now turned into real anxiety. At his mother's house, he saw an unfamiliar car, a white Honda Civic. His heart sank at the unexpected realization. Inside the house, Rita met him in her robe, her eyes red from crying. "I don't know what to do," she sobbed. "Alvin isn't answering, and that car has been here since this morning." Ethan went upstairs to his brother's room. The door was indeed locked. He knocked. "Alvin, open up." Silence. Ethan remembered where his mother kept the spare keys. A minute later, he was opening the door to his brother's childhood bedroom. What he saw made the world stop. Alvin was lying in bed, covered with a sheet. Next to him, with her back to the door, was a woman with her blonde hair spread out. On the floor were a pair of women's jeans that Ethan recognized immediately. He had bought them for Chloe's birthday. "What the hell is going on?" Ethan shouted. Chloe spun around. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with terror. Alvin slowly sat up in bed, making no attempt to hide anything. "Ethan, it's not what you think," Chloe began, pulling the sheet over herself. "What is this?" Ethan's voice sounded strangely calm, which was worse than any scream. "On our wedding day, my fiancé is in bed with my brother?" "Listen, kid." Alvin began to get out of bed. "Don't you dare call me that!" Ethan exploded. "Don't you dare!" "It was an accident," Chloe said, quickly getting dressed. "We were just talking, and..." "Talking? In bed? Naked?" Alvin got fully dressed and stood between his brother and Chloe. "Ethan, calm down. We're adults. These things happen." "Happen?" Ethan looked at his brother as if he were seeing him for the first time. "On my wedding day? With my fiancé?" "Ex-fiancé," Alvin corrected quietly. Those words hit Ethan like a slap in the face. All the childhood resentment, all the jealousy he had built up over the years toward his successful older brother, all the pent-up emotions came pouring out. "You always wanted what I had," Ethan shouted. "You always had to take what was mine, at school, at home, and now this." "No one took anything," Alvin replied calmly. "Chloe made a choice." "What choice? You seduced her!" "I didn't do anything against her will." Chloe tried to intervene. "Ethan, please, let's talk calmly." "Calmly?" Ethan turned to her. "After you slept with my brother the night before our wedding?" "It wasn't planned." "What was planned? How long have you been sleeping with him? Were you laughing at me?" "No, it only happened yesterday after..." "After what?" Chloe fell silent, realizing that she was only making the situation worse. Alvin intervened again. "Ethan, I understand you're upset, but..." "Upset?" Ethan laughed hysterically. "My brother is sleeping with my fiancée, and I'm supposed to be upset?" "Watch your language," Alvin said sharply. "Or what? What are you going to do, steal something else from my life?" The brothers stood face to face. Alvin was taller and stronger, but there was such rage in Ethan's eyes that he even took a step back. "You've always been the favorite," Ethan continued, his voice a mixture of pain and fury. "Father was proud of you. Mother excuses everything you do. You are forgiven for everything, allowed to do anything. And me? I've always been the shadow of the great Alvin Cross. It's not my fault." "Not your fault?" Ethan took a step forward. "You came here on purpose. You charmed her on purpose. You couldn't let me be happy. I didn't plan it. Lie!" Ethan grabbed a heavy glass ashtray from the dresser, a memento of his father that had always stood in this room. Alvin saw the movement and tried to dodge, but it was too late. The blow struck him in the temple. The sound was dull and terrifying. Alvin staggered, surprise flashing in his eyes. Then he fell, hitting his head on the corner of the dresser. Chloe screamed. Ethan stood with the ashtray in his hand, staring at his brother's motionless body. A pool of blood spread across the floor. "Alvin!" Chloe knelt down beside him and checked his pulse. "Alvin!" Her screams attracted Rita's attention. Her mother rushed into the room and saw a scene that would remain in her nightmares forever. "My God, what happened?" Ethan was still standing motionless, unable to believe what was happening. Chloe tried to find signs of life in Alvin, but she already knew that there was nothing she could do. "Call an ambulance!" she shouted to Rita. "And the police!" Rita took out her phone with trembling hands. 911? "We have an accident. My son isn't breathing." The next few minutes passed in a blur. Ethan sat down on the bed, still clutching the ashtray. Chloe tried to give Alvin first aid, even though she knew it was pointless. Rita cried in the hallway, answering the dispatcher's questions. At 7:23 a.m., ambulances and police cars pulled up to the house. The first to enter was paramedic Mark Wilson, a young man Chloe knew from her work at the hospital. "Chloe? What happened?" "Head injury," she replied professionally. "No pulse, pupils unresponsive." Mark quickly examined Alvin. "How long has it been?" "About 10 minutes. Let's try CPR." But after 5 minutes, it was clear that Alvin was dead. Sheriff Tom Harris followed the medics into the house. At 45, he had been with the Richmond Police Department for 20 years and had seen it all, but family tragedies were always the hardest for him. "Mrs. Cross," he said to Rita, "tell me what happened." "I don't know," she sobbed. "I woke up and heard screaming from Alvin's room. I called Ethan. He came, opened the door." Harris went up to the room where a photographer was already documenting the scene. Ethan was still sitting on the bed with the ashtray in his hands. "Sir, put that down on the floor and step back against the wall," the sheriff ordered. Ethan mechanically obeyed. "Are you Ethan Cross?" "Yes." "Tell me what happened." Ethan remained silent, staring at his brother's body. "Sir, I asked you a question." "We had an argument." "About what?" Ethan looked at Chloe, who was standing by the wall in clothes that had clearly been thrown on in a hurry. "Personal stuff." Sheriff Harris turned his attention to the girl. "And who are you?" "Chloe Miller. I'm Ethan's fiancée." "Fiancée? And what were you doing here so early?" Chloe hesitated. "We were supposed to get married today. I came to talk to Alvin about the details of the ceremony." "At 7 in the morning? In your pajamas?" Chloe looked at herself and realized that her story didn't sound very convincing. "I didn't sleep all night. I was nervous about the wedding." Harris wrote in his notebook, but it was clear he didn't believe a word he was hearing. "So, Mr. Cross, you came here and found your fiancée in your brother's room?" "Yes." "And you had an argument with your brother?" "Yes." "Serious enough that you hit him with an ashtray?" Ethan nodded. "Say it out loud for the record." "Yes, I hit him." "Did you intend to kill him?" "No, I just didn't think. It was an impulse." Detective Michael Rodriguez, Harris's partner, was examining the room. "Tom, look at this." A woman's blouse lay on the floor next to a pair of men's jeans. The bed was clearly rumpled. "Miss Miller," Harris said to Chloe, "are you sure you came here to discuss the details of the ceremony?" Chloe knew there was no point in hiding the truth. "Number Alvin and I were you sleeping?" "Yes." "The night before your wedding to his brother?" "Yes." Rita Cross, who had overheard the conversation, clutched her heart. "My God." "Mrs. Cross, do you need medical attention?" Harris asked. "No, I just can't believe it." Harris returned to the interrogation. "Ethan, when you found your brother with your fiancée, what exactly happened?" "I got angry. I yelled. We argued." "About what?" "Alvin said she wasn't my fiancée anymore, that she had made her choice." "And then you hit him?" "He always did that," Ethan suddenly said. "He always took everything that was best. At school, at home, my father loved him more. My mother always excused him. And now Chloe." "Ethan," Chloe said warningly. "What about Chloe?" Harris insisted. "He seduced her. He came early on purpose to ruin my wedding. That's a serious accusation. It's the truth. He couldn't let me be happy." Detective Rodriguez finished his inspection. "Tom, it's clear. Classic case of murder in the heat of passion." But Harris wasn't so sure. Something about this story didn't add up. "Miss Miller, tell me more about your relationship with Alvin." We met the day before yesterday when he arrived. And you went straight to bed? No! Last night he gave me a ride home after rehearsal dinner. We talked, and then it happened. And this morning you decided to do it again? I came to tell him that last night was a mistake, that I'm marrying Ethan and I don't want to see him anymore. And how did he react? Chloe fell silent. Miss Miller. He said he wouldn't let me go, that we were meant for each other. And then he kissed me, and I couldn't resist. Rita Cross cried even louder. Harris continued his questioning. Ethan, did you hear the conversation between Miss Miller and your brother? Number Y only heard shouting and went upstairs. What exactly were they shouting? Chloe was shouting, "Let me go!" And Alvin was saying something about love. Perhaps your brother was forcing Miss Miller? Chloe quickly shook her head. No, that's not true. It was consensual. Then why did you scream, "Let me go"? I meant it emotionally. I was asking him not to make what was already difficult even more difficult. Detective Rodriguez whispered something in Harris's ear. Ethan Cross, the sheriff said solemnly, you are under arrest on suspicion of murder. You have the right to remain silent. While Harris read the rights, Ethan stared at his brother's body. The rage subsided, leaving behind the horror of realizing what had happened. Mom, he said to Rita, I didn't mean for it to happen. Rita walked over to her son and hugged him. I know, son. I know. Miss Miller, Harris said, you'll need to give a statement at the station. You're free to go, but don't leave town. As Ethan was being taken away in the police car, he took one last look at his childhood home. His mother stood on the porch, looking 10 years older than she was. Next to her, Chloe hugged Rita and cried. In the car, Detective Rodriguez said to his partner, simple case. Jealousy, infidelity, murder in the heat of passion. He'll get 15 years at most, but Harris still had his doubts. Mike, don't you think it's strange that a girl would sleep with her fiancé's brother the night before her wedding? It happens. Cold feet, last chance for adventure. Or someone pushed her into it. Tom, don't complicate things. We have a killer, a motive, a witness. The case is closed. But Harris knew that the case was just beginning. In family tragedies, the truth rarely lies on the surface, and something in the behavior of everyone involved made him think that he didn't know the whole story yet. Routine work began at the station, filing paperwork, photographing evidence, preparing for the official interrogation. Ethan sat in the holding cell, still unable to believe what was happening. Just a few hours ago, he was supposed to marry the woman he loved. Now he was a murderer. His brother was dead and his ex-fiancée was testifying against him. In one morning, his life had been reduced to ruins, and the worst part was that he had created them with his own hands. Monday, 3 days after the murder. Sheriff Harris's office was littered with documents related to the Cross case. Crime scene photos, witness statements, forensic reports. Everything pointed to a simple murder in the heat of the moment. But something wasn't right. Mike, look at the timeline, he said to Detective Rodriguez. Chloe claims she came to Alvin's house at 6 in the morning to end their relationship, but neighbors saw her car there at midnight. Maybe they got the time wrong? 3 witnesses? Mrs. Parker from across the street is an insomniac. She clearly saw a white Honda at 2 a.m. Rodriguez shrugged. So Chloe's lying about the time. Doesn't want to look like a total slut. Or she's lying about why she was there. At that moment, there was a knock on the door. Martha from Martha's Diner entered. Sheriff, can I talk to you? About this terrible story with the Cross brothers? Of course, Martha. Have a seat. The elderly woman nervously fiddled with her handkerchief. I don't know if it's important, but on Thursday when the 3 of them were having dinner at my place, I noticed something strange. What exactly? Alvin kept looking at the girl in a way that a brother shouldn't look at his brother's fiancée, and she blushed when he talked to her. Ethan didn't notice, but I did. What else? When they were leaving, Alvin lingered to pay the bill. He asked me if I knew anything about Chloe's past. He wanted to know if she had been in a serious relationship before Ethan. Harris wrote it down in his notebook. Did he explain why he wanted to know? He said he wanted to be sure she was right for his brother, but there was a predatory look in his eyes. After Martha left, Harris called the hospital and asked to speak to Chloe. Miss Miller, I need to ask you a few more questions. Can you come down to the station? I'm at work until 6. Then after your shift. It's important. At 7 o'clock in the evening, Chloe was sitting in the sheriff's office. She looked tired and older. She hadn't been out in public for 3 days, and her colleagues at the hospital said she was working like a machine. "Chloe, tell me the truth about Thursday," Harris began. "About what happened between you and Alvin." "I already told you. Not everything. Martha saw him flirting with you, and you responded." Chloe sighed. "Yes, there was attraction, but I fought it." "What happened after the rehearsal dinner?" "He gave me a ride home. We talked on the way. He said I was special, that Ethan didn't appreciate me." "And what did you say?" "At first I defended Ethan, but then Alvin was very persuasive. He said we could have been together if we'd met earlier." "And he kissed you?" "Yes, and I didn't stop him." "Stop." Harris leaned forward. "Chloe, what happened next?" "After the kiss?" A long pause. "He asked me to meet him that night. He said he couldn't forget me." "And you agreed?" "No, I said it was crazy, that it was my wedding day tomorrow." "But you went to see him anyway." Chloe began to cry. "I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about him, about what he said. At 2 in the morning I realized I was going crazy, so I drove over to his place." "Why?" "To tell him that there could never be anything between us, that I was marrying Ethan." "And what happened?" "Alvin was waiting for me. It was as if he knew I was coming. He was irresistible. He said all the right things, looked at me in a way that made my knees go weak." "Did he force you?" "No, but he was very persuasive. He said that one night wouldn't change anything, that it would be our secret." "And you spent the whole night with him?" "Yes. And in the morning I realized I had made a terrible mistake. I wanted to leave, but he wouldn't let me go. He said he loved me, that he wouldn't let me marry Ethan." "That's when Ethan arrived?" "Yes, and it was all over." Harris studied the records. "Chloe, how long had you known Alvin before Thursday?" "Only 3 days. And in 3 days you decided to cheat on your fiancé with his brother?" "I know how it sounds. It sounds unbelievable. Either you're a very frivolous woman, or Alvin was a master seducer." Chloe looked up. "He was special. He knew how to make a woman feel like she was the most desirable woman in the world. But I think it was a game to him." "What game?" "Proving to himself that he could get any woman he wanted, even his own brother's fiancée." After talking to Chloe, Harris drove to Rita Cross's house. The mother of the murdered man and the killer sat in the kitchen staring out the window. She had aged 10 years in the last few days. "Mrs. Cross, I know this is hard, but I need to talk to you about Alvin." "About what exactly?" "About his relationships with women. Were there any problems before?" Rita sighed. "Alvin always liked girls, even in school, but he played with them." "How exactly?" "He dated several at the same time. He promised serious relationships, then disappeared. In college, there was a story about one of his friend's girlfriends." "What kind of story?" "He seduced her right before their wedding. His friend found out and beat Alvin up. They haven't spoken since." Harris wrote it down. "And in recent years, he rarely brought girls home, but I heard colleagues talking about his reputation as a heartbreaker." "Mrs. Cross, do you think Alvin deliberately seduced Chloe?" Rita was silent for a long time. "I don't know, but he was always jealous of Ethan." "Jealous? Why?" "Ethan was Dad's favorite in recent years. Robert was proud that his younger son was honest and reliable, but Robert was disappointed in Alvin after the incident with that girl at the institute." This was new information. "Did Alvin know about this?" "Of course. My father didn't hide his feelings. Before he died, he told me that Ethan would make a good family man, but Alvin would always be selfish." Harris realized he had a new motive. Perhaps seducing Chloe wasn't a spontaneous act, but a calculated revenge against his younger brother. The next day, he questioned Mike Thompson, Ethan's colleague. "Mike, how did Alvin act on Wednesday when he came to the auto shop?" "Strange. He asked a lot of questions about Ethan and Chloe. He wanted to know if they were happy and if they were planning to have children." "What else?" "He asked where they lived and what time Chloe got off work. He said he wanted to buy them a nice gift." "And then?" He suggested going out for a beer after work. All he talked about that evening was Chloe, how beautiful and smart she was. He said Ethan didn't appreciate a woman like her. The picture was becoming clearer. Alvin had indeed planned the seduction. On Thursday, Harris met with Ethan's defense attorney, David Stone. "David, I have reason to believe that your client was the victim of entrapment." "What do you mean?" "Alvin deliberately seduced his fiancée to cause him pain. It was a calculated act of revenge. That doesn't change the fact that he's dead, but it changes the circumstances. If we can prove entrapment, we may be able to get a lighter sentence." Stone thought for a moment. "What do you need?" "Permission to interview Ethan again, and to find witnesses to Alvin's past behavior." On Friday, exactly 1 week after the planned wedding, Harris spoke with Ethan again in his cell. "Ethan, tell me about your relationship with your father." "I don't see how that's relevant." "Just answer me." At first, Dad paid more attention to Alvin. He was older and more successful, but in recent years my father became disappointed in him. "Why?" "Alvin dropped out of college and started living a wild life. My dad said his older son was letting him down." "And you?" "I never caused any trouble. I worked and helped out at home. Before he died, my father said he was proud of me." "Did Alvin know that?" "Yes, and he was very angry. He said I was always the favorite." "But that's not true? I just didn't disappoint my parents." Harris showed Ethan photos from the crime scene. "Look closely, what do you see?" Ethan studied the photos. "I don't understand." "The bed. It's very neatly tucked under the blanket. It looks like someone deliberately staged the scene." "What do you mean?" "Your brother was waiting for Chloe. He knew she was coming. What's more, he planned for you to find them." Ethan turned pale. "No, that's impossible." "Alvin called your mother at 6:30, knowing she would call you right away. He timed it." "You think he wanted me to catch them?" "I think he wanted to cause you maximum pain. He may not have expected this reaction." Ethan covered his face with his hands. "My God, he really hated me. Enough to ruin your life on your wedding day." On Monday, 2 weeks after the murder, prosecutor James Whitman agreed to a plea bargain. Given the provocative circumstances of the case, Ethan could get 7 years instead of 15. "It's the best we can hope for," explained Stone's lawyer. "The fact that it was murder is indisputable." Ethan nodded. "I accept." Rita Cross, Chloe's parents, and several journalists were present in the courtroom. Chloe did not attend. She had left town immediately after giving her testimony. Judge Margaret Davis read the sentence. "Ethan Cross, you are found guilty of manslaughter with aggravating circumstances. You are sentenced to 7 years in prison." After the sentence was read, Rita approached her son. "I'll be waiting," she said, "as long as it takes." "Mom, I killed my own brother." "Alvin chose his own path. You will pay for your choice and start over." Sheriff Harris watched the scene with mixed feelings. Justice had been served, but the price was too high. One family had lost 2 sons, one forever, the other for 7 years. That evening, Harris sat in his office, filling out the last documents for the case. On his desk lay the photograph of the Cross brothers found in Rita's house. Alvin and Ethan as children, hugging and smiling. The Cross family's story was over, but the scars would remain forever. Rita would live with the pain of loss and guilt. Ethan would spend years in prison, reflecting on the moment that destroyed 3 lives. And Chloe would remember how one night of weakness led to tragedy. In small towns, stories like this are passed down from generation to generation, serving as a warning about how quickly something built over years can collapse and how costly one wrong step can be.